Hello there everyone, Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and in this video I'd like to share with you a time-lapse that was taken from a 9-part lesson series which is available to members over at thevirtualinstructor.com, where we draw a portrait of my daughter, my youngest daughter, with charcoal. Now we use white and black charcoal on gray paper to complete this drawing. Now this of course is a time-lapse, and I'm going to give you a little bit of commentary and tell you about the process of course in this video, but if you want the real-time instruction you have to be a member at thevirtualinstructor.com. Our program includes a variety of drawing and painting courses on a variety of subjects and media, also weekly live lessons, and this particular video that you're about to watch is from recorded live lessons, of course. So these are broadcast each week and recorded. They go all the way back to 2012. So we have quite a vault of recorded live lessons for you to explore. There's also a year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers and weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute. Now, if you want to learn more about our membership program and access this complete lesson series, there's a link in the description below this video. You can check it out. And if you're new to the YouTube channel or you haven't done so yet, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you're notified every time we post a new video. And also make sure that you like this video, of course. If you like it, that'll help us out for sure. Now, with all that being said, let's go ahead and dive into this drawing. Now for this drawing, we're working on gray toned paper, and this paper has a pattern very similar to charcoal paper. In fact, it's exactly the same as charcoal paper, and this is called a laid pattern, so it's a very linear pattern, but it does a great job of holding the charcoal material in place on the surface so it's a little less powdery. Now I'm starting here by using the grid technique, obviously, and I'm using the grid technique to ensure accuracy in the drawing, since accuracy is incredibly important in a portrait drawing, obviously. Now I'm starting here with an approach that might be a little bit different than what you've seen with charcoal in the past. I'm using vine or willow charcoal, very soft charcoal, to lay out what I'm calling an underpainting here with the charcoal. So I'm just concentrating on primarily the middle and dark values, leaving open spaces for the lighter values. But once we have this underpainting in place, we'll go back and refine the drawing using the compressed charcoal. Now, obviously, the advantage of working with this softer and looser charcoal at the beginning is we have the ability to move it around really easily. You can see I'm using my finger to smudge the applications once they're in place, and when I do the smudging and blending, sometimes with a blending stop, the value becomes much lighter, of course. Using this material initially, of course, leads to a lot of forgiveness. So we're free to move the material around on the surface and ensure that we've got everything in the place that we want it to be in before we commit to that compressed charcoal, which we'll apply later in the process. Now I have applied a bit of compressed charcoal here and there. You can see a bit of white on the surface and a bit of the dark compressed charcoal around the eyes. And mostly I applied the compressed charcoal already in this early stage just to solidify the locations of the eyes and a bit of information in the nostrils as well. At this point, I'm using a paper towel to cover up the palm of my hand so it doesn't do any smearing, but later in the process I switch over to a sheet of Mylar paper, which of course is a little bit of a better option because it's a little bit smoother, but in these early stages, of course, I'm sticking with the paper towel. So it's essential when you're working with charcoal, especially if you're working on a flat surface like I am here, to have some sort of barrier between the palm of your hand and your paper to avoid any unnecessary smearing, because this vine or willow charcoal is so easily smeared and moved around on the surface. I'm using the kneaded eraser every once in a while to remove some of the charcoal as well. Remember, at this point, we're only working with the middle to dark values, so the contrast that's going to be in place at the end of the drawing is not quite there yet. Remember, this is just an underpainting. And then once I was happy with my underpainting with fine charcoal, it's time to switch over to the compressed charcoal. And for the most part, I'll be using compressed charcoal pencils from here on out. You can see I'm using a white charcoal pencil, and I also use a black charcoal pencil to enhance the shadows. Some of the vine charcoal or willow charcoal that we applied earlier in the process when we created the underpainting is still going to show through in areas, but the black compressed charcoal, of course, allows us to push the values darker, and the white compressed charcoal, of course, allows us to push the values lighter. Working up here in the hair, I'm thinking about the form of each individual collection of hair instead of individual strands of hair. So I'm looking at the shapes of light and dark values. The hair is a little bit looser, especially when we're zoomed in close to the drawing. But when you back up a little bit from the drawing, the values and the value relationships, of course, create the illusion of the texture of the hair that we're after. I'm obviously still using the blending stump here and there to work some of the material into the tooth or texture of the paper. For the most part, I want smooth gradations between values at this point. All right, now we are starting to work our way down the picture plane, and this is the approach I took for this drawing. I started at the top of the picture plane and worked my way down, and at this point we're starting to create the illusion of form on the head. And of course this is all going to be created due to the value relationships and those gradations of value. There are lots of subtle valued shifts and changes that are happening all over the face, so it's important to kind of take your time here with the blending. You can see I'm applying a bit of the white charcoal and also some of the dark charcoal, and then easing the transitions using a blending stump. Now, in this particular scene, the light source is actually originating slightly from behind the subject, and this is producing an area of shadow right on the face. So this is a little bit different than what you would normally see in a portrait, but of course it creates a little bit more of a dynamic image and also communicates a little bit more about the form of the face as well, because we do have a little bit of higher contrast in this scene. You can see as I continue to work down the face, the process stays the same. It's basically a process of adding white charcoal and dark charcoal, just shifting those values so slightly, and also using the blending stump to ease the transitions from dark to light. Now at this point, I decided to bring down a bit of the white charcoal that's going to be in the background so that we can get a better idea of the contrast and value. Value is relative, which means that we understand the values based on the values that are around them. So a value may look a little bit lighter if it's next to a very dark value, for example. So having some of that white in place already is going to help us evaluate the values as we continue to develop the drawing, obviously. Here you can see as we're zoomed in really close, you can see the texture of the paper that we're working on. But you can also see that the details in the eyes and around the eyes are somewhat implied here. So you don't have to overdo it, especially with the charcoal. Remember, the most important element here is value. So as long as we get the darks in the right place and the lights in the right place, we get the shapes of those values approximately correct, then we're going to end up with a drawing that resembles the person. You can see here working around the mouth, some of the darkest values that we see are definitely inside of the mouth, obviously. So we're using that compressed charcoal in the inside. And the teeth, you might think the teeth should be a little bit lighter than they are, but they're actually a fairly dark gray. In other words, if we held a value scale right up next to those teeth, we would notice that they're actually towards the darker end of the value scale instead of the lighter side of the value scale, simply because there's so much shadow inside of the mouth. Now, of course, you're watching a time-lapse video, so this may seem like this process is very quick, but it's not. It's a very slow process. In fact, this drawing took approximately 11 to 12 hours to complete from start to finish. This is important to note, of course, because a lot of beginning artists think that art is something that can be created in a very short period of time. And of course, you can create some things in a short period of time, but for a drawing like this, you do need to be prepared to take your time and work slowly and be patient. In fact, if you want to see noticeable improvement in your drawing, one thing that you can definitely do is just slow down. So many folks tend to work very quickly and rush through a drawing, and sometimes it's beneficial to slow way down. And when you do it for the first time, you'll notice how much control you have, and it gives you a lot of confidence as well. And confidence, of course, usually leads to better art decisions, of course. So slow down, take your time, and just work slowly. Allow your drawing to gradually develop. Now you can see I'm adding some of these stronger highlights at this point with the compressed charcoal, the white compressed charcoal on the right side of the cheek. Now we're starting to see some of that full range of value gradually develop. Now, before we work too much further down the picture plane, we'll address the ear, and the process is the same here. We're applying some of the darker charcoal first and then using the blending stump to do some blending, and then the white charcoal over the top and ease those transitions, of course, and then we just continue to push the contrast and value. Now, the clothing in this image may seem tricky, but it's basically just a process of layering. We think about the skin first, and then we address the clothing on top of the skin, and then the lacy part of the garment that goes on top here. So we just layer the charcoal applications just how they are in reality. Now, this is definitely an advantage to using charcoal. If we were doing this image with colored pencils, we couldn't take this approach. So you can see this white charcoal is just applied over the top of the skin and the bit of the dress that's visible through the lace over the top. And then we can just simply blend that and then push the contrast and range of value just like we did on the face. And as we do so, you can see that some of the values underneath, of course, show through, and that helps to create that illusion of transparency that we're after. Now, of course, each bit of this lace is casting a little bit of a shadow underneath it, so we'll apply a bit of the compressed black charcoal and then do some blending, and also add a few highlights. Now, there is a very thin, small little mesh pattern that's barely visible, so with a very light touch, I add that mesh pattern using the white compressed charcoal pencil. Then all I had to do is fill in the rest of the background with white compressed charcoal, and then the portrait was complete. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you were able to pick up a couple of things here and there. Remember, if you're new to the channel or if you haven't done so yet, make sure you click on that subscribe button and click on that notification bell so you're notified when we upload new videos. If you want to check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free, there's a link in the description below. You can go check those out, of course. And if you want to be a part of our membership program, there's a link in the description below for that as well. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I wish you all the very best in your artistic success.